Well, I wanted to make a quick little video explaining what we're doing out here in Oregon. If you've been following me and following us, and if you're friends of ours, you know that our first stop was here in Oregon. And the main reason that we came to Oregon is to have an off-grid battery and solar system installed on our trailer. So you might ask, well, couldn't you have just done that where you were, like in Houston, or could the dealership when you bought the trailer have done that? And the answer to the second question is no. You don't really want a dealership to do this kind of work. It's pretty specialty. A lot of guys that do repairs in dealerships, they just don't know this kind of stuff. They know the basics. There may be an expert at a dealership. I don't want to poo-poo on everybody, but this is not something you want to do at the dealership. So, where did you go to have it done, you might ask? So, if you are interested in this sort of solar, lithium battery, boondocking, being off-grid kind of stuff, and the technical side of this stuff, you've probably watched videos from Explorist.life, and you can look this up on YouTube anywhere, but Nate and his wife and his team and his company, they have made hundreds of videos for DIY folks to put these kinds of systems in. Extensive detailed videos about wiring, about batteries, about fuses, about wire gauge, about crimping, about systems, setting up huge systems, setting up systems at your homestead, like even big off-grid systems like in Alaska or stuff like that. But anyway, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of videos. So his company, Explorist.life, also does installs if you don't want to DIY. And I did have a choice of either DIY or have this done by someone, and I chose to have it done by someone, and I chose to have it done by Nate's team here in Redmond. If you want to have that done by Explorist.life, that I guess is the name of the company, you have to come to Redmond to have that install done. Let me rephrase that. You get to come to Redmond to have that install done. So one of the good things about coming to Redmond to have this work done is Jan and I have really fallen in love with this area. Redmond is kind of if you're from Houston, it's kind of like Pasadena. And then Bend, Oregon is the big city that everybody's heard of. And then currently we're in a smaller town called Sisters. And this is all in this Central Oregon area. It is so lovely. There are just so many things to do. So one of the benefits of coming up here is we've fallen in love with this area. If we don't stay longer than planned this time, we're definitely coming back. So that's what we're doing here. That's why we drove from Cypress, Texas, all the way to Redmond, and did some things in between, stayed at some awesome campgrounds, spent some time in Moab, but eventually got here. And the purpose of that was to have this electrical system installed. So now I'm going to take a couple minutes and show you the work that they did. It's pretty cool. So with any off-grid setup, you basically need a few things. You need batteries. The pretty much standard is to have lithium batteries. The beauty of lithium batteries is you can use 100% of the capacity of those batteries. Other kinds of batteries, like they call them lead acid or AGM, you can look that up. I don't know what that stands for, but those kinds of batteries are a little a little more persnickety. You can only use about half of their capacity, and then you have to charge them back up again. But a lithium battery is lighter, it has more capacity, it lasts longer, they say. We're going to find out in about 5 years if they last a long time. But anyway, you need batteries, and then you need a way to charge those batteries. That's where solar comes in, and you do that via solar panels mounted either on top of your rig or deployed in a suitcase random area around your campsite. Another way to charge your batteries is with shore power. And just to kind of show you what shore power is, that is basically when you are, well, let me show you. All RVs have a shore power, or should have a shore power connection. And that is where you have a plug into your RV, and then usually some kind of pedestal, and there's different kinds of plugs. There's a 50 amp plug, a 30 amp plug, and I guess a 20 amp plug, or I guess 15. I don't know if it's 20 or 15, but anyway, you need to be able to charge. You can also charge your batteries from shore power. Now, the third way you can charge your batteries is actually from your alternator in your tow vehicle. So you can run a wire from your alternator, and which is basically your battery up front. And as you're driving and your truck is generating power, the excess power that it doesn't need can go through a wire into your RV, and it can also charge your batteries while you're driving. So you can see that this plug will plug, this is for alternator charging. So when we're driving, I plug this plug into my truck, and I can charge the batteries while I'm driving, simultaneously charging with solar panels on top. Obviously, I'm not hooked up to shore power while I'm driving. Now, that brings me to what I really want to show you, and that is the work that the guys at Explorist.life did and the system. You can see that they have put that system here in my storage bay. So awesome. They did leave a lot of room because of the way they put everything together. They still left me room in here for items, for my hose and for my water filters and for the sewage stuff and other things. On the other side, we have room for a couple of boxes, but let me show you what this is. So our system here has, these are the batteries. So these are Epoch batteries. There's 2 of them. They have, the capacity of them is 460 amp hours. So that is basically the size of your fuel tank, okay? This item up here is called a distribution box. That is how the power from the batteries gets distributed to all the loads in the trailer. This right here is the alternator charger. That is the controller that controls the power coming from the alternator. Sorry, that's this thing. Coming from the alternator into the batteries. All these controllers, when I say the word controller, that means that it regulates the amount of power coming into the batteries, and it keeps it from coming in too fast and damaging the batteries, or coming in too slow and the batteries getting confused, and everything just needs to be smart about things. And that's what these controllers and these things do. And all of them have to be connected to each other. So that's one thing. I'm going to go on the other side. So here's a look at our batteries from the other side. And I don't know if you can notice, but this whole plate here and the backboard that they used to install all this stuff, that was all part of the deal. All of the straps that keep the battery secure and those anchors, they did all of that. So next, moving from the other end over this way, what you've got is a solar controller. Now you can see this is for my ground deployable solar. I have 1,000 watts of solar on the roof, and I have 2 suitcase portable solar panels that I can carry and deploy on the ground anywhere in case the area on my roof is in the shade or not getting enough sun. So this controls the ground deployable solar, and then this big one here is what controls the solar on the roof. So 1,000 watts of solar over 5 panels on the roof, and 400 watts of solar over 2 panels that I can deploy on the ground. Now this is the brains of the whole operation. This basically is, it's called at its core, it's an inverter. It's a 3,000 watt inverter, which means it can take the battery power and it can translate that into AC power, which is what is used to run like your microwave or your air conditioners or your TV or all those big things. So the batteries have power that's direct current. This is used when you need that direct current converted to alternating current. And you can look that up. I'm not the expert on that stuff, but this is the big beast that controls everything, keeps everything safe. Anytime there's an overcurrent or undercurrent or surge, it's all contained in this big thing called a multi-plus-2. This is really the heartbeat of the whole system. Now we'll get into what I call some of my ancillary stuff that I wanted installed. This is called an Anderson plug, and I wanted this just on the ready, installed right there, attached to the batteries, in case I had any kind of peripheral, equipment that I needed to power. I could create a plug on that thing that can plug right into this, and I can run it off my batteries. Some examples of that might be an air compressor. And I do have an air compressor to air up our tires when needed. So I have on that air compressor made the wire such that it will plug into that, and I can run the air compressor off of my batteries. I've seen people connect water pumps to an Anderson plug like that. All kinds of stuff. So it's just basically another outlet. Think of it as an external outlet. You still got these things that came with your trailer, these outlets like this. They're regular AC outlets, but this is a special DC outlet that's made with what's called an Anderson plug. If you go to the front of the trailer, you can see that they installed this very fancy plug. That is for the ground deployable solar panels. So I can take this cord right here, plug that in, and then run this out to my 2 deployable suitcase solar panels. And that is if I wanted to have solar kind of out away from the trailer, or just an additional 400 watts coming in. If we're out in the middle of nowhere somewhere and we're running our air conditioning, and the 1,000 watts that are on top aren't keeping up, we got 400 more watts that we can hook up with that. Another thing I really wanted for us traveling full time in the RV, and we're trying to unplug. Granted, we're trying to unplug, not be on the internet so much. It's part of the retired life. You don't want to be on the internet all the time, but you do need to be connected. Your TV, if you watch YouTube videos, stuff like that. If you're doing any banking on your laptop, anything like that, you really need to be connected to the internet. And across the country, when you're in a trailer, there are a couple ways to get internet. You can get internet through Starlink. That's this thing right here. Or, as you know, you can get internet through cellular, so through a cell signal. Well, both of those things have their pros and cons, and I'll save that for another video. But what I wanted personally was I wanted the option to use either or. I wanted the option to use either Starlink or use a cellular signal. So, and I also wanted everything to run off the batteries, because I didn't mention this, and you can look this up, but when you run it off of alternating current, it can use quite a few more watts than if you run it off your batteries. So it can get pretty tricky running these devices off the batteries / DC current. You have to install some special equipment. So let me show you what we've done. So that Starlink is connected to a wire, and that wire is about 50 feet long, and it comes into the trailer and is connected to this device up here. This is called a Power over Ethernet, or PoE injector. What that does is this thing is powered by those batteries, and when you plug the Starlink satellite into this device, the Starlink satellite likes AC power. It converts it to DC power and spits it out the other side to your router. So you can see that blue cord coming out. They routed that inside to my router. So that is Starlink running on DC power. Now let's go, well, let's stay out here for a second. So to use cellular internet, I used a company, and I bought a product from a company called Insty Connect, INSTY Connect. And what this company does is they make really highly efficient antennas, cellular antennas, that you put on top of your RV, and it goes out and gets whatever signal is out there, and it amplifies it really a lot faster than your phone. From my limited testing, sometimes 3-4 times faster than what you get on your phone. And then it runs it inside to that router. So I'll show you that router here in a minute, but that router basically brings in 2 different kinds of internet, 2 different sources of internet: cellular from Insty Connect or satellite from Starlink. And I'll show you that router and where it is inside the trailer. So this is the router that basically brings in both types of internet and then broadcasts it throughout the trailer, and even reaches as far as outside. But all of that stuff was routed from that bay that we saw below, all behind these counters and everything, and up into this dresser, if you want to call it that. and out into the InstaConnect router. Now this router, like I said, over here you've got the InstaConnect cellular signal internet coming in. Over here you've got the Starlink coming in. This router can handle multiple internet sources. Now something interesting about the cellular signal is this cellular signal, like I said, comes from an antenna on the roof. Inside that antenna is a modem, and that modem has two SIM cards, and it has a T-Mobile SIM card and it has a Verizon SIM card. And InstaConnect gives you and sells you a internet plan that gives you basically unlimited internet on either or network. So it's basically a two-in-one cell phone. You get T-Mobile and you get Verizon, and you switch back and forth. If you're logged on to T-Mobile and the signal cuts out, you can switch over to Verizon, or you don't get a signal in the area that you're in, you can cut it over to Verizon and get that. Obviously, if neither T-Mobile or Verizon are working, that's why I have Starlink, because then I can connect to satellite. So we've pretty much got it covered. If we can't get internet with this setup, I don't know how we're going to. And then finally, this is kind of the brains. I know I said the Multi+2 was the brains of the system, but this is the monitor of the system, and this is where you see your battery percent, how much time you have remaining at the current rate of the current load of the battery. Over here are your loads. This is how much power you're using right now. Over here is how much power you're taking in. You can see this grid means that I'm plugged into the grid, and I'm taking shore power in. This solar yield is only at 36. That's because the battery's pretty much full. And when you're plugged into shore power like that, your battery's going to stay full. There are some lights and maybe the refrigerator, maybe a couple of things running on DC load. But this is how you look at everything. It's got a lot of configurations. You can set notifications for when you're having problems. There's all kinds of settings. You can integrate tank sensors, temperature sensors, all kinds of other things you can put on here. Basically, I was told to leave this alone and leave it on that screen. So I'm not going to get up on the roof and show you the solar panels, but you can see them. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, and there's one on the other side. That's 5 times 200. That is the 1,000 watts of solar. There is room up there for 2, maybe 3 other panels, probably just 2. But you know, you gotta look at your trailer, its power needs, what you're going to be doing, and you gotta size the system accordingly. I mean, if the longest you're gonna camp and boondock and be out in the boonies is 3 or 4 days, you know, you don't have to go crazy. A system like I just showed you is perfect. If you want to go out and you don't ever want to come back until you run out of water or food, then you probably need to get a bigger trailer or something that you can put a lot more solar. You probably want to double those batteries. But this is all something you've got to think about. Doing something like this is not cheap. And the bigger your system gets, definitely the more expensive the system gets. The more work it is to put it in, and so forth. Each of those batteries that I got, for example, each of those batteries, and they are high-end batteries, I'll admit, quality batteries by Epoch, E-P-O-C-H. But each of those batteries, for example, is $2,000 each. So when you start saying, you go in and say, oh, I want 3 or 4, then, I mean, it's just like ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching. And then pretty much if you have a trailer that's got 3 air conditioners and you want to camp in Corpus Christi in the middle of the summer and run your air conditioners all day, well, I got 1,000 watts of solar. You need 2,000 watts of solar. I don't know. I mean, I'm not the expert at sizing these systems, but this is all what you gotta think about and talk about with your installer or yourself if you're going to do it yourself. I feel like the Explorist.life guys really helped me size a perfect system for this trailer and for our camping needs. This is going to enable us not to always be plugged into one of those pedestals at a campsite. We could go to a campsite that maybe doesn't have pedestals, or we could stop overnight at a rest stop. Let's say we're traveling somewhere and we can't find a campground, but we just need some place to stay overnight. We can pull into a rest stop and have all the electricity we need to get through the night, and then get going the next day and start charging those batteries back up. We can take this rig out into the boonies, out off of a dirt road somewhere. It's called boondocking, and we could live as long as we got plenty of sunshine and we're careful with our 65 gallons of water and we don't waste it. We could stay out and camp for free out in the woods somewhere for 3, 4, 7 nights, something like that. So it's a perfect system sized for our trailer and for our needs, and we're super happy with it. Okay, well, I'm gonna end it here. Just wanted to put that video together. I had several of my friends, and that's really who this video is for. I know I'm gonna put it on YouTube for the entire globe to see, but chances are just some of my good friends are going to be watching this, and that's awesome. Hope you get something out of it. Hope you at least see what we're doing here in Redmond, Oregon. And I'll tell you what, in retirement over these next years, we won't need a reason to come to Redmond and Bend, Oregon. This place is awesome, and I think we've just scratched the surface of trails and hiking and biking and all kinds of stuff, food, drink, everything, all that kind of stuff that there is to do in this area. So thanks for watching. Bye.